Imagine you're standing at a fast food counter. You know exactly what you want to eat.
Right.
You know all the vocabulary words you need to order it. But like as the cashier looks at you waiting, your brain just suddenly feels like, I don't know, like a computer trying to load this massive high-res file on a terrible internet connection.
Oh, yeah, the worst feeling.
You completely freeze up, the words are right there in your head, but you just can't get them out of your mouth. So today, we're looking at that hidden neurological lag that causes this exact panic. Welcome to this deep dive.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So today, we are dissecting a really fascinating transcript from the Do's Bangla podcast. And, the material specifically addresses speakers transitioning from Bengali to English, but,
Yeah.
but the psychological barriers and, well, the practical solutions they outline, they basically apply universally to anyone learning any language.
Yeah, exactly, because the underlying cognitive mechanisms of language acquisition, they don't really change based on your native tongue. Whether you're, moving from Spanish to English or Japanese to French, that exact feeling of knowing the language but being totally unable to deploy it in real time, it's a universal human experience.
It really is. Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is to deconstruct exactly why this frustrating barrier happens. Like, we need to figure out why your brain is locking up at the absolute worst possible moments.
Definitely.
But more importantly, we're going to extract the practical methods from our material today to train your brain to think directly in English. We want to look at how to bypass that sluggish, awkward translation phase in your head.
So you can unlock faster speaking.
Faster speaking, better listening, and just a serious boost in your conversational confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to understand the solution, we first have to really examine the root cause of this speaking struggle.
Right, like why does it happen?
Exactly. Why is it that understanding someone else who is speaking English is relatively easy, but generating your own speech is so exhausting?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Well, the concept we're looking at here is essentially what they call double work.
Double work. Okay, so what does that actually look like in our brains when we're, standing at that fast food counter sweating?
Well, think about what happens when the cashier asks you a question. If you haven't explicitly trained your brain to think in English, your default reaction is to process their question, formulate your answer in your native language first.
And then translate it.
Right. Then, word by word, you try to translate that native thought into English. So you're doing the work of formulating a thought and then doing the entirely separate work of translating it.
Wow, yeah.
And that translation process, it demands an immense amount of cognitive energy. And crucially, it takes time.
It takes so much time.
By the time you've finally translated your thought and you're actually ready to open your mouth, the window for natural conversation is just, it's closed. You feel the delay, and that delay creates panic.
It makes me think of like having terrible internet ping in an online video game.
Well, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, like you're trying to play, you know exactly what button you want to press, but you're constantly lagging because your data is being routed through some, I don't know, distant, unnecessary proxy server before it actually reaches the game.
Yes.
In this case, your brain is routing the English conversation through the proxy server of your native language. And that mental ping, that lag, is literally what makes you freeze.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it. You're dealing with high cognitive latency. And what's fascinating here is how this latency directly triggers an emotional response.
Oh, for sure. The panic is real.
Let's go back to that fast food scenario. If you wait until you're literally at the counter staring at the cashier to formulate your order in your native language,
Right.
and then route it through that proxy server to translate it into English, your stress levels inevitably spike. You feel the pressure of the moment.
You're intensely aware of the lag.
Exactly. You're acutely aware of the lag in your brain, and you feel the weight of, all the people waiting in line behind you.
Yeah, you start sweating, you're suddenly scrambling for the word, for like napkins, and your brain just, it completely shuts down the application entirely.
Precisely. But if you bypass the middleman and think directly in English beforehand, like if you stand in line and formulate the thought directly, I want a chicken burger.
The tension completely vanishes.
Exactly. You've removed the translation step, so when you get to the counter, you just deliver the line. The high ping is gone. You're communicating on a direct local network.
Okay, so if this proxy server method, this translation trap, is so incredibly inefficient and causes us so much stress, why on earth does our brain keep defaulting to it? Like, why do we do this to ourselves?
Basically, because the brain is an energy-saving machine. It loves the path of least resistance.
Okay.
Your native language is a heavily reinforced neural pathway. You've used it your whole life.
Right. It's just automatic.
Exactly. When faced with a complex task like communicating, your brain immediately wants to use its strongest, most efficient tool. And the material we're analyzing today points out that this reliance manifests as four specific roadblocks.
4 roadblocks. Okay, what's the first one?
The first is exactly what we've been talking about, the deeply ingrained habit of translating everything.
Oh, gotcha.
As long as you allow your brain to fall back on its native language to formulate the initial thought, it'll never be forced to build strong, direct neural connections in English.
So the first roadblock is just the habit itself. But wait, if we manage to somehow bypass that native language and just start spitting out English words directly, don't we run into a huge problem with grammar?
How do you mean?
Well, I imagine the second roadblock has something to do with the fact that without our native language to, like, structure the sentence, we're going to sound foolish. Isn't grammar kind of the whole point?
See, this raises a really important question about the actual purpose of language.
Yeah.
You nailed it. The second roadblock is precisely that, overthinking grammar.
Oh, interesting.
When you're about to speak, if your inner monologue is suddenly asking, wait, is this the present perfect tense? Did I conjugate that irregular verb correctly?
Right.
Your brain simply cannot handle the cognitive load. You cannot retrieve vocabulary, monitor social cues, and run a complex grammar check all at the exact same millisecond.
That's just too much processing power.
Exactly. The result is that you go silent. Your brain paralyzes itself with rules.
Okay, I see the dilemma. You sacrifice the actual human connection you could be making because you're terrified of using the wrong tense.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the ultimate goal of language is communication, not academic perfection.
Yeah.
If you make a grammatical mistake, the world doesn't end. You still get your chicken burger.
True.
And more importantly, you learn from the interaction. But if you let the fear of bad grammar keep you silent, you learn absolutely nothing.
Which ties right into the emotional side of this, doesn't it? We're terrified of looking stupid.
Yeah. The emotional block is the third major roadblock. It's this pervasive, paralyzing fear that if you say something wrong, people are going to laugh at you, judge your intelligence, or just think less of you.
And man, what I found so comforting about the transcript is its brutal honesty on this point.
Oh, absolutely.
The reality is that everyone is way too busy worrying about their own lives, their own problems, and their own insecurities to care about your grammar mistakes. They really are.
They just want to know what you want to order.
Exactly. They aren't grading your conversational performance.
It's a very liberating realization. Once you realize people are generally just trying to navigate their own days,
Yeah.
the pressure really drops.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that brings us to the fourth roadblock, which is a structural one. The lack of an English environment.
Okay, lack of environment.
The human brain adapts to whatever environment it's exposed to the most.
Mm.
If your entire day, your media, your conversations, your internal monologue, if all of that is running in your native language, your brain has absolutely zero incentive to shift gears.
It gets no practice operating directly in English.
None at all.
But hold on a second. I hear this advice all the time, just immerse yourself, think in English. But if my vocabulary is tiny, how can I possibly form thoughts?
Right.
Like, I literally do not have the words to build the concepts in my head without translating them first. Isn't it physically impossible to think in English if you only know, say, 100 words?
That is one of the most common myths in language learning, and the material we're looking at dismantles it beautifully.
Really? How so?
You do not need a massive Shakespearean vocabulary to begin thinking directly in English.
Okay.
If you only know the absolute most basic foundational words, the trans uses the examples eat, go, and sleep. You can, and you absolutely should, start thinking directly in English using just those words.
Just eat, go, sleep. How does that even work as an actual thought process?
You don't need to formulate a complex internal thought like, I'm going to politely excuse myself from this room to partake in an evening meal.
Right. Nobody thinks like that anyway.
Exactly. You just think the concept and link it directly to the word. I eat, I go, I sleep.
I see.
The complexity of the sentence is entirely irrelevant at the beginning. What matters is the architecture of the thought. You are creating a direct, one-to-one connection between the abstract concept in your mind and the English word, completely removing the native language from the equation.
Wow, okay.
Big improvements in fluency start with those very small, unpolished, but direct sentences.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. It's not about the size of your vocabulary, it's about the directness of the neural connection. You're trying to build a direct cable instead of routing it through a hub.
That's exactly the right way to visualize it.
Okay, so we know we need to drop the proxy server, stop obsessing over grammar, get over ourselves, and build direct connections.
Right.
But practically speaking, how do we actually do that? Because most people listening don't live in a fully immersive 24/7 English-speaking environment. If our brain adapts to its surroundings, how do we fix the lack of an English environment?
Well, if you cannot physically live in an English-speaking environment, you have to build that environment inside your own
It's
head.
inside your head. Okay.
Yeah, the material outlines 3 highly practical steps to begin rewiring your brain's default settings. Step 1 is incredibly straightforward. Name the room.
Name the room. So, like, look around wherever you are right now and name the objects you see.
Yeah,
Chair, table, phone, window.
exactly. It sounds almost overly simplistic, but let's look at what is actually happening neurologically.
Okay.
When you look at a table, your brain usually fires the word for table in your native language. By actively labeling your reality in English, you're forcing the brain to associate the visual stimulant, the physical table, directly with the English sound.
Ah, I see.
You're slowly shifting the brain's default reaction to everyday objects.
But I mean, naming stationary objects only gets you so far, right? How do you handle actual actions and verbs?
That is step 2. Talk to yourself.
Talk to yourself.
Yeah, you move from labeling objects to narrating actions. And yes, it might feel incredibly awkward at first, right? But narrating your own life is a remarkably powerful habit. When you wake up, you think, I am brushing my teeth. I am getting ready. You're creating a running commentary of your physical actions in English.
It's like you're the narrator of your own documentary. The host is now drinking his coffee. The coffee is dangerously hot.
That's exactly it. And what makes this so effective is that it forces you to generate English on the fly, but in a zero-pressure environment.
Oh, because nobody is listening.
Exactly. Because no one else is listening, the emotional block, that fear of making mistakes in front of others, it's completely eliminated.
That makes total sense.
You can stumble, you can use the wrong verb tense, and it doesn't matter. You're just greasing the wheels of that direct connection.
Okay, step 3 is one I think a lot of learners get wrong, but it completely blew my mind when I understood the mechanics of it.
What's that?
Using an English-to-English dictionary.
Yes. This is a critical pivot in how we learn. When you encounter a new English word, the natural instinct is to immediately look up the translation in your native language so you can understand it quickly.
Right, you want the quick fix. You just want to know what the word means right now.
But doing that actively reinforces the translation habit we're trying to break.
Because you're literally building another bridge back to your native tongue.
Exactly. The material strongly emphasizes using an English-to-English dictionary instead. You read the definition and the explanation of the new word entirely in English.
Let's unpack the mechanics of why that works better. Because honestly, it sounds a lot harder.
It is slightly harder at first, but it pays massive dividends. Let's say you're trying to understand the word happy. If you look up the native translation, you're just mapping happy to a word you already know in your native language.
Right.
But if you read the English explanation, like feeling good and joyful, you are staying entirely inside the English ecosystem.
Ah, I get it.
You're learning a new word by utilizing words you already understand, like good and feeling.
So instead of tethering every new English word back to your native language, you're tethering English words to other English words. You're building a web of meaning.
What's fascinating here is that you're building a self-sustaining semantic network in your brain.
A self-sustaining network.
Yeah. When one English word fires, it activates other English words rather than activating your native language. It traps your brain beautifully and constructively inside the English language.
I love that visualization. A self-sustaining web versus a bunch of individual tethers.
It really changes the game.
So we're naming our tables and chairs, we're narrating our morning routines in a zero-pressure environment, and we're building our semantic web with the right dictionary.
Right.
Once we master those basics, how do we level up? Because eventually we need to handle abstract thoughts, complex planning, and actual conversation without falling back into the proxy server trap.
That brings us to the next phase of tactics. To handle more complex communication, you have to follow a very specific rule. Think in simple sentences.
Simple sentences.
When you're trying to transition to thinking entirely in English, the biggest mistake is attempting to construct long, winding, multi-clause thoughts. That is a guaranteed way to overload your working memory and get the brain stuck.
So if I'm feeling overwhelmed at work, I shouldn't try to formulate a thought like, I am experiencing a significant amount of occupational stress due to upcoming deadlines.
Exactly. Keep it crystal clear. Just think, I am stressed,
Ah,
or I have too much work.
okay, keep it brief.
Do not try to write a novel in your head. Just send a telegram. The goal is to keep the thought simple enough that it doesn't require native language scaffolding to hold it up.
I see.
And once you're comfortable maintaining simple, direct thoughts, you move to the true holy grail of fluency, developing your inner voice.
How is the inner voice different from what we were doing earlier with narrating our morning routine?
Narrating is observational. You're describing what is already happening. Developing your inner voice means you're transitioning to planning, conceptualizing, and originating intent in English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you talk to yourself to organize your future actions. Like, I will study now and then I will watch a video.
So you're taking the narrator of the documentary and you're promoting them to the director. You're making the decisions in English before the actions even happen.
Originating the thought in the target language is the ultimate goal. When you plan in English, you're proving to your brain that English is a functional tool for navigating reality, not just an academic subject to be translated.
And to fuel this new director in your head, we have to look at the daily routine. The material stresses that classroom time or like sitting down with a textbook for an hour is just not enough exposure to build a functional inner voice.
No, you need massive exposure. You need to read simple English stories, watch videos, listen to audio. The cognitive equation is straightforward. Greater exposure to the target language equals faster neural adaptation.
What really stood out to me from the material on this point was this specific, highly practical hack of narrating daily chores.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one.
We all have so much dead time in our day. Time where our hands are busy, but our brains are just wandering. Commuting, folding laundry, doing the dishes.
The transcript uses cooking as an excellent example.
Yes, you're standing there chopping onions. Instead of just zoning out or worrying about your day in your native language, you actively take control of that dead time.
Right.
You think, I am cutting vegetables. I am holding the knife. I am turning on the stove. You're turning 15 minutes of dead time into highly active, immersive language training. It completely removes the excuse of, I don't have time to practice.
It is a phenomenal way to rack up hundreds of hours of functional practice without having to carve out a single extra minute in your daily schedule.
But let's be real for a second. Motivation is not a straight line.
Never is.
It's going to dip. People are going to get tired. They're going to hit a wall. They're going to forget basic words. And it's going to feel incredibly frustrating.
That's true.
How do we sustain this internal environment over weeks and months when our brain is just screaming to go back to what is easy?
Sustaining the habit requires structure. The material offers a highly specific framework to keep you on track. First, they suggest bookending your day in English.
Bookending, so setting the tone in the morning and closing it out at night.
Right. Start your morning by intentionally priming your brain. Formulate a simple English thought. Today I will practice. It sets the cognitive intention for the day.
Okay.
Then, before you go to sleep, recall the events of your day in English. I worked today. I talked to my friend. I cooked dinner.
So it's basically a recap.
Exactly. This forces you to use the past tense naturally and ensures the last cognitive effort of your day is in the target language.
It frames your entire waking life in an English mindset.
Yes, it does.
But what about when you're in the middle of like a chaotic Tuesday afternoon and you just cannot force yourself to maintain that inner voice?
For those moments, the material introduces a really powerful boundary tool, the coming-minute rule.
The 30-minute rule, okay.
You set a timer for exactly 30 minutes. During that specific window, absolutely no translation is allowed. None.
Wow, none at all.
No matter how tough it feels, no matter how much your brain is begging for its native proxy server, you stay completely in English. It operates like a concentrated burst of intense cognitive exercise.
I love this, but what happens during those 30 minutes when you inevitably hit a mental roadblock? Because this actually led to my absolute favorite aha moment from the entire transcript.
Oh, the workaround for forgotten words.
Yes. What do you do when you're looking around your kitchen during that 30 minutes and you completely forget the word for refrigerator? The immediate instinct is to panic and look it up in your native language.
And if you do that, you break the rule and reinforce the translation habit.
Right.
So what is the workaround? You use circumlocution.
Circumlocution.
You explain the concept using the English words you do possess. If you forget refrigerator, you do not translate. You just describe its function. A cold box for food?
A cold box for food. It is so brilliant. It's like you're navigating a maze, you hit a dead end, and instead of giving up and teleporting back to the start, your native language, you just find a different path through the maze.
Exactly.
You solve the problem entirely inside the English language.
You're forcing your brain to be flexible and resourceful within the constraints of the new language. Yeah. And that resourcefulness is the core of true fluency.
It's a fantastic mental trick. But even with all these workarounds, when you're in the thick of it day after day, progress can feel invisible. You don't feel yourself getting 1% better on a Wednesday compared to a Tuesday.
Which is why tracking your progress objectively is vital to maintaining motivation.
Yeah.
The material recommends a very specific exercise.
Right.
Recording your own voice speaking English today. Talk about your day, describe the room you were in, just speak freely.
Okay, record yourself.
Then put the recording away. Commit to these internal habits, naming objects. The 30-minute rule, using the English dictionary for one solid month. Then record yourself again.
And compare the two.
When you listen to those two recordings back to back, the difference in your fluidity, your reduction in lag, will be undeniable.
Oh, that's gotta feel amazing.
You won't just feel the improvement abstractly. You will hear concrete audio evidence of your own neuroplasticity. It provides the exact proof you need to keep going when motivation wanes.
That is incredibly practical.
Yeah.
Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to something foundational we touched on earlier regarding the fear of sounding foolish.
Yes, so important.
If you take away nothing else from this discussion, remember this core message from the material. Mistakes are not failures. They are literally the mechanism by which learning occurs.
Exactly.
If you aren't making mistakes when you speak or think in English, you aren't pushing your cognitive boundaries hard enough.
The silence created by perfectionism is the absolute enemy of fluency. You have to be willing to be a beginner.
So we want to leave you with the challenge presented in the material. Choose just one daily activity. Maybe it's making your morning coffee or commuting to work or, walking the dog.
Just one.
For the next week, try to perform that one specific activity while operating entirely with an English inner voice. No proxy servers, just one activity. See how it changes the way you process the world around you.
And as you embark on that challenge, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to mull over.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
It builds on everything we've discussed today about constructing this new internal environment. If you successfully build this English inner voice, and you start living significant portions of your internal life entirely through the lens of a new language,
Yeah.
does your personality actually change?
Oh, wow. That is a fascinating question because language shapes how we categorize emotion and logic.
Right. Research in psychology and linguistics suggests that it very well might. People consistently report taking on slightly different personas when they switch languages.
Really?
Yeah, because you're bypassing your native language, you're also bypassing some of the cultural and emotional baggage attached to it.
That is so interesting.
You might find you have a completely different level of assertiveness, a more direct way of expressing emotion, or even a completely different sense of humor when your internal monologue switches to English.
So the ultimate question isn't just how quickly will you speak English? The real question is, who will your English self turn out to be?
Precisely. It's a journey of discovering a new facet of your own identity.
That is definitely something to think about the next time you find yourself freezing up in a conversation, desperately waiting for that high cognitive ping to drop. Don't route it through the proxy server. Just take a breath, find your English self, and ask for the chicken burger. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.